The galaxy trembled whenever the Gravok called for battle. They were the most feared warriors, undefeated for centuries. Their warships moved like storm clouds, covering the stars, and wherever they went, planets surrendered without a fight. This time, the Gravok issued a challenge to the entire galaxy. Bring us your strongest, your bravest. Let the best warriors fight us, and we will see who is truly worthy of survival. The message spread across every star system, reaching thousands of alien species. Some saw it as an honor to fight the Gravok. Others knew it was a death sentence. No one had ever defeated them. The Gravok fought with brute strength, unmatched speed, and an instinct for killing. Many warriors from different worlds stepped forward. The Etherians, tall beings with 6 arms, believed their combat skills would impress the Gravok. They lasted only minutes before their bodies were thrown aside like broken toys. The Thranox, a race covered in armored plates, thought they could withstand the Gravok's attacks. But the warlords found their weak points and tore through them with ease. One by one, the greatest fighters in the galaxy fell. And then the Gravok laughed. This is the best the galaxy has to offer. High Warlord Zorkath stood in the center of the battlefield, his massive frame covered in the scars of past victories. You are weak. You do not deserve to exist. Is there no one left who dares to challenge us? In the middle of this chaos, a new message arrived. Earth had accepted the challenge. The other alien races were stunned. Earth, the humans, they were a small, young species. They had no grand empire, no legendary warriors. Their military was advanced, but they had never fought in battles like these. The idea of a human standing against the Gravok was laughable. Yet the Gravok did not refuse. If the humans wished to fight, they would be given the chance. And so a lone human warrior was sent. His name was Captain Daniel Carter. He was not the strongest. He was not the fastest. Compared to the alien warriors who had already fought, he looked ordinary. He was average height, his muscles were not enormous, and he had no deadly claws or armored skin. But when he stepped onto the battlefield, he did not look afraid. High Warlord Zorkath looked at him and smirked. This is your warrior, humans, a weak, soft creature. Daniel tilted his head. Before we begin, I have one question. Zorkath crossed his arms. Speak. What are the rules of this fight? Daniel asked. The Gravok warriors roared with laughter. Rules. In battle. What kind of warrior worried about rules? There are no rules, Zorkath said, grinning. This is a fight to the death. No mercy. Daniel smiled slightly. Good. That's exactly what I was hoping for. The Gravok warriors stopped laughing. Something about the way he spoke felt strange. It was not the voice of a man who expected to die. It was the voice of a man who knew something they didn't. The signal was given. The battle was about to begin. The battlefield was silent. Thousands of Gravok warriors stood in the massive arena, their glowing red eyes focused on the lone human standing in the center. Captain Daniel Carter looked small compared to the towering warlords around him. The Gravok were giants, their bodies covered in thick armor-like skin, their sharp claws ready to tear apart any opponent. But Daniel didn't look afraid. High Warlord Zorkath stepped forward, his enormous form casting a shadow over the human. He grinned, showing sharp teeth. Do you understand what you have walked into, human? This is not a game. This is not a test. This is a warrior's graveyard. Daniel met his gaze without blinking. I understand. Zorkath laughed. The Gravok warriors around him joined in, their deep voices echoing through the battlefield. Your kind is strange. You know you cannot win, yet you still stand here. Why? Daniel shrugged. Because you asked for the strongest warriors in the galaxy. The laughter stopped. Zorkath narrowed his eyes. Are you saying that you, a weak, flesh and bone creature, are stronger than the warriors we have already defeated? I'm saying that strength isn't just about muscles, Daniel said. You think power is about who can hit the hardest, but there are many kinds of strength. The warlord snorted. Then show us, human. Show us how strong you really are. The Gravok signaled the beginning of the battle. A warrior named Cragor, known for crushing his enemies in seconds, stepped forward. He was twice the size of Daniel, his muscles thick like stone, his claws sharp enough to cut through metal. The crowd roared as Cragor charged. He was faster than expected, moving like a beast hungry for blood. His massive fist swung toward Daniel's head, but Daniel wasn't there anymore. In a blink, he had sidestepped the attack. Cragor's punch smashed into the ground, cracking the stone beneath them. The Gravok warriors watching were confused. How had the human moved so fast? Cragor snarled and attacked again, throwing a series of brutal strikes. Each one could have ended Daniel in an instant, but the human didn't try to block. He dodged. Every attack missed. Cragor's movements were powerful, but predictable. Daniel studied him, watching for patterns, finding weak points. He wasn't fighting the Gravok's way. He was fighting the human way. Then, in the middle of Cragor's next attack, Daniel made his move. He stepped in, redirecting Cragor's punch with a quick motion. The Gravok's own strength became his downfall. His balance broke for a second. Just a second. But that was all Daniel needed. He struck. A single precise hit, right in Cragor's exposed throat. The huge warrior choked and stumbled backward, struggling for air. The audience went silent. Then, with a final gasp, Cragor collapsed. Dead silence. The Gravok, for the first time in history, were speechless. Zorkath stared at Daniel, his expression unreadable. This wasn't how battles were supposed to go. The Gravok were meant to dominate, to crush, to destroy. But this human had just defeated one of their best warriors without a single scratch. Daniel exhaled and straightened his stance. Still thinks strength is only about muscles. The silence was broken by a deep, growling voice. Another fight. A second Gravok warrior stepped forward. This one was even bigger than Cragor, his muscles rippling, his fangs dripping with challenge. Daniel smiled slightly. All right, let's keep going. The battle was far from over, but one thing was clear. Humanity had changed everything. The arena was no longer filled with laughter. Instead, there was silence, thick with shock and confusion. The Gravok warriors, who had mocked the human just moments ago, now watched him with something new in their eyes. Caution. High Warlord Zorkath clenched his fists. He had seen many battles, but never had a fight ended like this. The lone human had taken down a Gravok elite warrior without suffering a single injury. This is unacceptable, one of the Gravok warlords growled. Cragor was one of our best. This human must have cheated. Zorkath raised a hand to silence him. He stared at Captain Daniel Carter, who stood in the center of the battlefield, calm and steady. There was no fear in his eyes, no hesitation in his stance. This was not a warrior relying on luck. He had planned every move. Another challenger, Zorkath ordered. A massive Gravok warrior, Barzok, stepped forward. He was larger than Cragor, his dark green skin marked with battle scars. His forearms flexed as he cracked his knuckles. He was a fighter known for overwhelming his enemies with sheer power, attacking from multiple directions at once. Barzok grinned, revealing sharp teeth. You were lucky against Cragor. Let's see how you do when you can't dodge every attack. Daniel simply exhaled and rolled his shoulders. All right, let's do this. The battle began. Barzok charged like a storm, his forearms moving like hammers, ready to crush Daniel from all sides. His attacks came faster than Cragor's, leaving no space to escape. But Daniel wasn't trying to escape. Instead of dodging, he moved in closer. The Gravok warriors watching gasped. That was suicide. No one willingly stepped into the attack range of a four-armed warrior. Yet, Daniel weaved through the strikes, slipping past Barzok's massive arms with perfect timing. He didn't just avoid the attacks, he used them. Every missed swing threw Barzok off balance, making him waste energy. The Gravok prided themselves on brute force. They had never encountered a warrior who fought like this, with precision, with patience, with strategy. Barzak roared in frustration. "Stand still and fight me properly." Daniel smirked. "Why?" "So you can hit me." The Gravok warriors around the arena murmured. This was not just a fight. This was a lesson. The human wasn't fighting on the Gravok's terms. He was forcing them to fight on his terms. Then, Daniel saw his opening. Barzak swung all four of his fists in a powerful downward strike. But at the last second, Daniel ducked low and rolled under him. Barzak's own strength became his weakness. His heavy fists slammed into the ground, and for just a moment, his guard was open. Daniel struck. A single, powerful kick to the back of Barzak's knee. The massive Gravok warrior stumbled. His balance was broken, his footing lost. And in that moment of weakness, Daniel followed with a precise strike to the side of the head. A spot he had noticed was not as thickly armored. Barzak's eyes widened. His body collapsed onto the ground. He struggled to rise, but his limbs were shaking. His own power had drained him. The battlefield was silent once again. Then slowly, Barzak looked up at Daniel. He was breathing heavily, but there was no hatred in his gaze. Instead, there was respect. "You," Barzak's deep voice rumbled. "You did not win with strength." Daniel nodded. Strength isn't just about muscles. It's about control, endurance, and intelligence. For a long moment, Barzak stared at him. Then, to the shock of every Gravok in the arena, he bowed his head. Zorkath's eyes narrowed. This was not what he expected. The Gravok only respected power. Never had they bowed to another race. Yet now, before his very eyes, one of his strongest warriors was showing submission to a human. The Gravok warlord clenched his jaw. Enough of these games. Daniel turned to face him. "Are you going to fight me next?" The warriors around them gasped. No one had ever challenged the High Warlord directly. Zorkath's eyes burned with anger, but also with curiosity. The human had proven himself more than once. There was something different about him. He took a step forward. "You want to challenge me, human?" Daniel held his ground. "I'm just following your rules. You said no mercy. You wanted the strongest warriors. So let's see who's really the best." Zorkath's lips curled into a dangerous grin. "Very well, human. You have earned my attention." The final battle was about to begin. And this time, the entire galaxy was watching. The arena was no longer just a place of battle. It had become a stage for history. The human, Captain Daniel Carter, had defeated two of the Gravok's strongest warriors. Now, he stood face to face with High Warlord Zorkath, the most feared leader of the Gravok Empire. Every Gravok warrior in the audience held their breath. Zorkath was not just any fighter. He was a legend, undefeated for over 2 decades. His victories had built the foundation of their empire. Yet now, for the first time, someone had dared to challenge him. Zorkath cracked his knuckles, his dark green skin glowing under the arena lights. His red eyes burned with intensity as he stared at the human before him. "You have proven yourself, human," Zorkath said in a deep, rumbling voice. "But you have not faced me." Daniel took a slow breath. He could already tell this fight would be different. The other Gravok warriors were strong, but they were predictable. Zorkath, however, had seen countless battles, fought countless warriors. He wouldn't make the same mistakes. The arena gates locked, sealing them inside. This was it. "Begin." Zorkath moved like lightning. Despite his massive size, he was fast, faster than any Gravok Daniel had fought before. His first attack was a powerful swing, aiming to break Daniel's guard instantly. But Daniel didn't dodge. Instead, he blocked. The impact sent a shockwave through his arms, but Daniel held his ground. He had learned from the last fight. Dodging wasn't enough anymore. He had to prove he could take a hit. Zorkath's eyes flashed with approval. Good. He struck again, faster this time. A knee to the stomach, a spinning elbow toward Daniel's head. Daniel countered. He caught the knee with his forearm and barely managed to tilt his head away from the elbow. But before he could strike back, Zorketh was already moving. A massive kick sent Daniel flying backward. He crashed onto the ground, rolling to absorb the impact. His ribs ached, but he gritted his teeth and pushed himself up. The audience roared, their excitement filling the arena. Zorketh smirked. "Not bad, but you won't last much longer." Daniel wiped the sweat from his forehead. He had faced bigger challenges before. The trick wasn't to fight Zorketh with brute force. He had to fight with strategy. He took a deep breath and focused. Zorketh lunged forward again, throwing a rapid series of punches. But Daniel had spent years studying combat. He could see it now, the pattern. Every warrior had one, even Zorketh. At the last moment, Daniel stepped inside Zorketh's strike range, closing the distance. The Gravok warlord's eyes widened. He wasn't expecting this. Daniel pivoted on his foot, twisting his entire body into a powerful punch to Zorketh's side, right in a weak spot beneath his ribs. The impact reverberated through the arena. Zorketh stumbled for the first time. The Gravok warriors watching gasped. Their undefeated leader had just been hit. Zorketh looked down at his side, then back at Daniel. A deep, rumbling laugh escaped his lips. "Impressive," he admitted. "You see more than most." Daniel stayed silent, keeping his focus. He knew one thing. Zorketh wasn't just testing his strength. He was testing his mind. The Gravok were warriors, but they respected something more than strength. They respected adaptability. And Daniel was proving that humans were the most adaptable species in the galaxy. Zorketh exhaled. Then, for the first time in the battle, he lowered his fists slightly. "You fight with skill," he said. "But a true warrior does not fight only for himself. What do you fight for, human?" Daniel took a step forward. His voice was steady. "I fight for my people, for the survival of my species, just like you." Zorketh's expression changed. The battle tension shifted. For a long moment, there was silence. Then, slowly, Zorketh nodded. "This battle is over," he declared. The Gravok warriors gasped in shock. Daniel frowned. "What do you mean?" Zorketh stepped forward and offered his hand. "You have won something greater than victory," he said. "You have won respect." The entire arena erupted into murmurs. Some warriors looked angry, others thoughtful, but none could deny what they had seen. Daniel hesitated for a moment, then grasped Zorketh's hand. The moment their hands met, a Gravok battle tradition was completed. It was a sign of acknowledgement, of warriors recognizing each other as equals. Zorketh turned to the audience. "The humans are not weak," he declared. "They are worthy." The Gravok warriors stood in silence. Then, slowly, one by one, they pounded their fists against their chests. A salute. Daniel stood tall. He had come here as a challenger. But now, he had done the impossible. He had turned enemies into potential allies. But as he looked around, he could feel it. Not everyone was happy with this outcome. Deep in the shadows of the arena, a figure watched, their eyes filled with hatred. This battle was over. But the war was just beginning. The thunderous cheers of the Gravok warriors still echoed in the arena, but Daniel Carter knew not all of them agreed with Warlord Zorketh's decision. The Gravok were a warrior race. They lived for battle, for dominance. Some of them would never accept a human as an equal, no matter how strong he was. And those who disagreed would act in the shadows. That night, Daniel was taken to a guest chamber within the Gravok fortress. It was a simple, metallic room, much like a soldier's barracks. No decorations, no comforts, only a bed and a single light source. Zorketh had personally escorted him there, walking beside him in silence. When they reached the door, the warlord stopped. "You have done something no one has done before, human," Zorketh said, his deep voice calm. "You have earned my respect." Daniel crossed his arms. but not everyone else's. Zorkath nodded. Some will not accept this outcome. Be careful tonight. That was all he said before he turned and walked away. Daniel sighed and sat on the bed. His muscles ached from the fight, and his ribs still felt sore from Zorkath's powerful kick. But he couldn't sleep. Something felt wrong. The fortress was quiet, too quiet. Then he heard it, a soft footstep outside his door. Daniel reacted instantly. He rolled off the bed just as the lights flickered and died. Darkness filled the room. Then the door slid open. A group of Gravok assassins rushed inside, their movements swift and silent. They wore dark armor, their weapons gleaming in the dim light from the hallway. Daniel had no time to think, only time to act. The first assassin lunged, aiming a blade at his chest. Daniel sidestepped, grabbing the Gravok's wrist and twisting it. The alien grunted in pain, but another assassin was already swinging a weapon toward Daniel's head. Daniel ducked just in time. The blade slashed through the air, barely missing him. He had no weapons. He was outnumbered. But he had his mind. Daniel grabbed the first assassin's arm and threw him into the second. They collided and stumbled back. The third assassin, larger than the others, rushed forward, swinging a massive energy blade. Daniel had seconds to react. He rolled backward, grabbing a metal chair from the corner of the room. As the assassin lunged, Daniel slammed the chair into his opponent's head. The impact sent the Gravok crashing to the ground. But more were coming. Daniel knew he couldn't fight them all. He needed to escape. He sprinted toward the door, but another figure appeared, blocking his path. This one wasn't like the others. He was taller, with golden armor and piercing red eyes. "You should have died in the arena," the figure said coldly. Daniel didn't waste time with words. He charged forward. The armored Gravok was fast. He sidestepped Daniel's attack and slammed a fist into his stomach. Pain exploded in Daniel's ribs. He staggered back, gasping for air. The Gravok stepped closer. "You are a threat to everything we stand for. You must be eliminated." Daniel gritted his teeth. "You warriors talk too much." The Gravok's eyes flashed with anger. He raised his blade for the final strike. Then, boom! The fortress shook as an explosion rocked the hallway outside. The assassins turned in shock. Daniel didn't hesitate. He lunged forward, driving his shoulder into the golden armored Gravok's chest. The impact sent them both crashing through the door and into the hallway. Smoke filled the air. Sirens blared. The fortress was under attack. Daniel rolled to his feet, coughing. What was happening? Then he heard a familiar voice. Human. He turned and saw Zorkath striding toward him, his face dark with fury. Gravok guards followed behind him, weapons raised. Zorkath took one look at the assassins and roared in rage. "Traitors," he bellowed. The golden-armored Gravok, still dazed from the fight, struggled to stand. "We are protecting our people, warlord," he growled. "The human is a danger to our way of life." Zorkath's eyes burned. "He has earned his place. You, however, have earned only death." The assassins tried to flee, but Zorkath's guards were faster. Within moments, the traitors were subdued. Daniel, still breathing heavily, looked at Zorkath. "I take it not everyone agrees with your decision." Zorkath exhaled slowly. "There are always those who resist change. But this is treachery." Sirens still rang in the distance. The fortress had been attacked, but by whom? Zorkath's expression hardened. There is more at work here than just rebellion. Daniel's mind raced. If the Gravok were being attacked, who was behind it? And more importantly, was humanity next? Smoke still filled the corridors of the Gravok fortress. Sirens blared, and red warning lights flashed across the metallic walls. Daniel Carter stood beside Warlord Zorkath, both watching as the captured assassins were dragged away by the Gravok guards. The warlord's face was dark with fury. "Treachery from my own warriors," he growled. "But this attack, It is not just from within. Daniel wiped sweat and dust from his forehead. Who's attacking? Before Zorkath could answer, a massive explosion rocked the fortress again. The walls shook violently, and a deep, unnatural hum filled the air. Zorkath's eyes narrowed. I know that sound. Daniel turned his head and saw a Gravok warrior running toward them, his armor covered in scratches and dust. Warlord, the warrior panted. The fortress is under siege. It's the Veldrak. Zorkath's expression turned to stone. Daniel had never heard of the Veldrak before, but judging by the warlord's reaction, they were bad news. The Veldrak? Daniel asked. Who are they? Zorkath's voice was grim. A race of mercenaries. Conquerors. They fight for the highest bidder, and they do not take prisoners. Daniel clenched his fists. So someone hired them to take you out. Zorkath nodded. And we are trapped inside my own fortress. Another explosion hit, this time closer. The walls groaned, and sparks rained down from the ceiling. The warrior who had brought the news swallowed hard. Warlord, the Veldrak have breached the outer gates. We cannot hold them for long. Zorkath exhaled. He looked at Daniel. Human, do you still wish to prove yourself? Daniel gave a dry chuckle. I think I already did. Zorkath nodded. Then let's see if you can do it again. The battlefield inside the fortress. The Gravok warriors rushed to their positions as massive warships appeared in the sky above the fortress. The Veldrak were here. Through the thick smoke, Daniel could see their enemy. The Veldrak were tall, almost reptilian, covered in dark armor with glowing red visors. They moved in organized waves, their weapons deadly and precise. Daniel grabbed a fallen Gravok rifle and checked the energy levels. Guess I'll have to make this work. Zorkath stood beside him, his massive warhammer in hand. Stay close, human. The first Veldrak warriors charged forward. Gunfire filled the air. Daniel ducked behind cover, firing precise shots at the enemy. A Veldrak warrior leaped over the barricade, trying to bring a blade down on him. But Daniel was faster. He rolled aside, grabbed a fallen energy blade, and sliced across the enemy's armor. The Veldrak staggered back, and Zorkath finished him with a single strike from his warhammer. The battle raged on. The Gravok warriors fought bravely, but the Veldrak were better armed and better prepared. The fortress walls trembled as the enemy's heavy weapons tore through them. We can't hold this position forever, Daniel shouted over the gunfire. Zorkath gritted his teeth. Then we must strike at their leader. Daniel glanced at the sky, where the largest Veldrak warship hovered. Let me guess, up there. Zorkath nodded. If we take down their commander, they will scatter. Daniel smirked. Then let's go pay him a visit. Infiltrating the warship. Getting to the enemy warship was not easy. With the fortress crumbling around them, Daniel and Zorkath fought their way through the battlefield, taking out squads of Veldrak warriors. Near the landing bay, they found an abandoned enemy transport. This thing still works? Daniel asked. Zorkath climbed into the cockpit. We are about to find out. The engines roared to life, and within moments, the transport lifted off the ground, flying toward the massive Veldrak warship above. Daniel checked his rifle. I hope you have a plan. Zorkath's grip tightened on the controls. We make one as we go. As they approached the warship, enemy turrets locked onto them. Incoming fire, Daniel shouted. Zorkath swerved hard, dodging the first blast, but a second hit the side of the ship, sending it spinning out of control. Daniel gripped his seat. This is a terrible plan. Zorkath growled. Then we make it better. With expert skill, the warlord angled the ship toward one of the warship's hangars. They were coming in too fast. Brace yourself, Zorkath roared. The transport crashed into the hangar bay, skidding across the metal floor before slamming into a stack of supply crates. Smoke filled the air. Daniel groaned. Still alive. Zorkath pushed a crate off his shoulder. Alive. and angry. The hangar wasn't empty. A squad of Veldrak guards had already surrounded them, weapons raised. Daniel sighed. Of course they were waiting for us. The leader of the squad, a towering Veldrak with black armor and a jagged scar across his snout, stepped forward. He pointed his blaster at Daniel. "Surrender, human. Surrender, warlord. Your fight is over." Daniel looked at Zorkath. Zorkath looked at Daniel. Then they both charged forward. The guards opened fire. The final battle had begun. The Veldrak warriors raised their weapons, red lights glowing on their rifles as they aimed at Daniel and Zorkath. Smoke and sparks filled the hangar bay, the wreckage of their stolen transport still smoldering behind them. The leader of the Veldrak, a towering warrior in black armor, stepped forward. His reptilian eyes locked onto Zorkath with cold amusement. "Warlord Zorkath," he sneered. "You've grown weak. You fight alongside a human." He scoffed. "How disappointing." Zorkath tightened his grip on his warhammer. "And you, Korath, have grown arrogant. You think your kind is unstoppable." The Veldrak leader, Korath, grinned. "I don't think, Zorkath. I know." He gestured, and his warriors opened fire. The last stand. Daniel dove for cover, rolling behind a stack of crates as laser blasts tore through the air. Zorkath, unafraid, charged forward, swinging his massive warhammer. The first blow sent a Veldrak warrior flying across the hangar. The second strike crushed an enemy rifle into useless scrap. Daniel popped up from cover, fired 2 precise shots, and took down 2 Veldrak soldiers. "Stay behind me, human," Zorkath roared. "Not a chance." Daniel shot back, moving alongside the warlord, covering his flank. The battle raged on, but more Veldrak warriors poured into the hangar. The enemy had sheer numbers on their side. Daniel gritted his teeth. "We can't keep this up forever." Zorkath glanced toward the large control panel on the far side of the room. "Then we don't." Daniel followed his gaze. "That panel controls the ship, doesn't it?" Zorkath nodded. "If we can override the systems, we can crash this warship into the Veldrak fleet." Daniel smirked. "Now that's my kind of plan." A race against time. The two fought their way toward the control panel. Blasts exploded around them, forcing Daniel to move fast and low, dodging incoming fire. Suddenly, Korath appeared, blocking their path. He held a massive energy blade, its sharp edges crackling with raw power. "You will go no further," Korath growled. Zorkath stepped forward. "Then fight me, coward." Korath snarled. Their weapons clashed, sending a shockwave through the hangar. The warlord and the Veldrak commander exchanged powerful blows, each trying to overpower the other. Daniel had no time to watch. He sprinted toward the control panel, sliding behind the terminal as blaster fire rained down around him. He pulled up the ship's command system. The interface was complex, full of alien symbols and controls he didn't fully understand. "Come on, where's the manual override?" Daniel muttered, typing furiously. Behind him, Zorkath and Korath's battle shook the floor. Sparks flew as energy blades clashed against armor. Finally, Daniel's fingers found the right sequence. "Got it," he shouted. The ship rumbled as the engines overloaded. Warning sirens blared. Zorkath, still locked in combat, grinned. "Now we leave." But Korath was furious. "You fools. You will die here with us." Zorkath slammed his warhammer into the enemy's chest, sending him crashing into the wall. "No, Korath. Only you will." Escape and victory. Daniel and Zorkath sprinted for the nearest escape pod as the warship began to break apart. Explosions ripped through the corridors, and enemy warriors scrambled in panic. They reached the pod, and Daniel jumped inside, pressing the launch controls. The airlock doors sealed shut, and the pod blasted away from the doomed warship. From the small window, they watched as the massive Veldrak warship lurched toward the fleet. Korath's voice screamed through the comms. "No, You cannot. Boom! The warship exploded in a fiery blaze, taking half of the Veldrak fleet with it. The remaining ships, leaderless and panicked, quickly retreated. Zorketh laughed, shaking his head. Human, you truly are insane. Daniel smirked. Hey, you wanted to see what humanity can do. Zorketh nodded, looking out at the wreckage. And I am impressed. A new future. Back on the Gravok homeworld, Daniel was honored before the entire warrior clan. Zorkath stood beside him, placing a hand on his shoulder. Today, we did not just defeat an enemy. We changed everything. The Gravok cheered, their roars shaking the great hall. Daniel smiled. He had come here as an outsider, but now he was a legend. And maybe, just maybe, the universe would never be the same again. The end.